Most dreams are just reflections of your own fears, desires, hopes, thoughts, things going on in your world and in your mind. And they don't necessarily mean anything spiritual, but sometimes you have dreams that are so symbolic and have so many layers that you have to believe there's something more than that. And I had a dream like that last night, and it was about lions. And I was really blown away, and I remembered a dream I had about a lion a year ago, and I decided to look at some old photos of a drawing I made of that dream, and it was a year ago today. And so I'm gonna tell the story about the dream I had then, and then the dream I had last night. So in my dream, there were these rolling hills covered in tall grass, so tall that you couldn't see over it. It was above people's heads. And throughout these grasslands, there were like little clearings where they had walked the grass down, and there were groups of people in them. And there was a lion with a head that looked like the sun, like its mane was the rays of the sunlight. And it would run through the grass at like this unbelievable speed. And it would run into those clearings and just knock people over and just kill them, obliterate them. And the reason it was able to do this was that the people could not see over the grass, so they were just helpless to stop this from happening. And then there was this little girl who was probably 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that. And she found this shard of the lion's tooth that had fallen out. And it was made out of crystal, but it was very brittle. And she carved it, because it was easy to carve because it was brittle, into a knife. And on the handle was inscribed the initials of someone, and I don't know who, but I got the impression that it was an older male relative or friend, and someone she was close to. Um, and she bravely just stood her ground and was just waiting for this lion and using its own tooth against it. And I don't remember anything happening with that, but she could take this thing on. And I thought that was really, I was like, wow, that's really powerful. Just this little kid. Um, and then later in the dream, I was in a cabin with a group of 4 or 5 people. I think they were guys. Don't know who they were. But the door to the cabin opened inward and there was no lock on it. And what I realized was that we were in danger, because this lion that was just roaming around, this demonic sun-headed lion, could just burst through the door and kill everybody. So I decided to go out and search for this lion and attack it and run it down and kill it or whatever. So I went out and I found it, and I ran after it, and I grabbed it, and I started smashing its head into the rocks on the ground. And as I did this, the lion transformed into what appeared to be maybe a 14-year-old boy, or 14 to 16, 17, teenager, high school age. And I kept smashing it, and its face was all bloody, and it had this look of fear and terror. And what I perceived this as was that this demon had turned into this person, because it was afraid and it was trying to stop it, and it wanted sympathy, like, hey, I'm just this kid, stop doing it. But I saw through it, and I looked at it and I said, get the hell out of here. You go to the thorn forest and you stay there. You can't be here anymore. So I banished it. And I don't know who that little girl was, or who whose initials they were. I did have the thought that I have nieces, and I'm an uncle, and they love their uncle, and I love them, and maybe this represents one of my nieces. Maybe it doesn't represent a literal person. Maybe it's my daughter in the future, So, but regardless, it was a symbol of this profound power. Oh, this is weird. There's a little spider crawling towards me. A wolf spider. Huh, it's funny. Kind of weird. I call me superstitious, but just ran away. So anyway, that was the dream. Last night, I had a dream that there was this huge male lion. Or sorry, first of all, I was in the movie Beast with Idris Elba, which I haven't seen, but I've seen the commercials, and it's like this sort of suspense horror about with Idris Elba and his family go to Africa, and they get attacked by this vicious lion, and I was in the movie. It was like real, and it was terrifying. But that stopped, and then I was with this friendly lion, and I was play wrestling with it and hugging it, and we were just wrestling on the ground, and it there was no fear. There was this love there, and it was just this euphoria of just hugging and just play fighting with this lion that was just, it was good, and it was basically, it was Aslan basically, but it couldn't talk or anything like that. But it also had a female lion partner, and I decided to name them Simba and Nala because that was the most obvious thing. And later on, they lived on this preserve that was fenced in, and I would go in there and with this lion, with these two lions. Later on, I went back to the preserve and I opened the gate. There was a group of other lions, male lions, somewhere between 5 and 10, and they were just kind of standing around. But they looked different than Simba did. And I was really surprised that they just had these unique looking faces and manes, and they were all very different, and they all looked different. And I was looking for him, and I couldn't see him, and I was like, where'd he go? Um, and I was disappointed, but all of these lions, they weren't like friendly or tame necessarily, but they weren't dangerous or anything. They were just kind of, I was just there with them and just looking at them, and then I left. Don't know what that part means. That's not the most important part, though. It was that the symbol of the lion, which had originally been demonic, and then in this dream, this lion started off as this vicious beast. And then that symbol was turned around, and basically flipped the script, and now instead of being the lion being a dangerous enemy, it was my friend and ally, and it was a symbol of power, and there was this love there, like this lion was my pet, but more than a pet, it was like my brother, like my friend. And last night before I went to bed, I asked God to give me a dream. And I've done that before, but it's not something I do very frequently. And another interesting thing is, I have a hard time these days remembering my dreams. I used to lucid dream a lot. I got really into it. I kept a dream journal, and I got to where I could remember my dreams, and I could control them to some extent. It's really strong, but it's been frustrating because I've been trying to do that, but it's very hard to. I couldn't tell you what my dreams were for a very long time. I can't remember the last time I could remember a dream. So the fact that I did remember this one, and it came after asking God to show me a dream, and at a time when I am really transforming right now spiritually, and sensing God's presence and having spiritual insight. And there was nothing about this that I could say was like provably prophetic. Oh, I did have a dream a few weeks ago, maybe, that was prophetic, and I actually did see physically a manifestation of a thing directly from my dream, and it was symbolic, and it had to do with being a powerful shaman, we'll just say. It was, well, I'll get into that. That's not going to get into that. The I'm just going to talk about the lions. And one last thing is a dream I had a couple years ago, and in it I was in the African savannah, and there was this ring of animals from Africa. So lions and buffalo and ostriches, things like that. Just really powerful animals. And I was standing right next to a lion. And I remember, and I was just standing there amongst them. I remember thinking, wow, I feel like I should be scared, and I'm nervous, but I know that I'm standing amongst equals. Like I have the same power within me that I see in these animals. And that as long as I just stood there and stood there confidently, like I was just as powerful as them and need not be afraid, they weren't gonna, attack me. That, maybe they would if I got scared and ran away, but as long as I was brave and I just stood there and I felt confident and powerful. And I told my mom about this dream, and she told me that the day or night right prior to the dream, she had prayed for me to feel powerful, not in an egotistical way, but to have power in a good sense, the power to stand up for yourself and achieve things, and to not be helpless and hopeless. The sun-headed lion dream also happened right on the anniversary of another event that had happened exactly a year prior, and it involved, I forget what all it involved, but one of the elements was that my sister got kicked by a horse in the kidney, and she she could have died. It was really bad. And I had this sense that there was something spiritual about this, um, because this family and in this area. Oh my gosh, yes. That on the anniversary of the Sun headline the year prior, I had a dream that I saw a pair of demonic lions on the road towards our house, and we had a fence that kept them out. And I went through it and I knew they couldn't get in, but later I had a dream, like the next day, that they had actually gotten into the fence, and I took that as spiritually symbolic of, you know, dark powers at work, which I called skinwalkers. I decided that's what they were. So anyway, those are my dreams. Usually dreams are boring, like usually, but yeah, that's it.